one more day. Traveling with a band is like being in a spacecraft. There's close quarters. The scenery can be astoundingly beautiful, but you need to get the right group of people. Everything's got to fit perfectly. Anyway, Dennis had a card that said bassist, chef, etc. And the etc. was the best part. So he tried out for the band. He worked hard to learn the songs. And I said that I would take him for a 3-week tour and no guarantees. So we're going to go to Banff, Edmonton, and Nelson. So the band went ahead in the van, and I took the train with Dennis to Banff. And while we were waiting at the train station, this lady comes up. She goes, "Are you entertainers?" And we said, "Well, yeah, we are." And I thought she was Australian, but turns out she was from New Zealand. And she says, "Oh, do you play heavy metal?" And we just laughed and laughed, and she laughed with us. Anyway, we sat together in the train, and instead of sleeping in our roomettes, we drank until they wouldn't give us any more booze. We partied all the way to Banff. When we got off the train at Banff, the first thing Dennis said to me was, "Man, if we'd have gone as far as Calgary, I'd have nailed her for sure." So anyway, we called him Dendo. He was a funny guy. Anyway, in Banff, one night he was leaning over trying to talk to this waitress while we were playing, and he fell off the stage right on his face, but he kept playing. And that's when we decided to call him Dendo, right? Anyway, so all that week he was trying to pick up this waitress and stuff. So on our way to Edmonton, of course, we're in the van again, and Dennis says, "Man, if we were there one more day, I'd have nailed her for sure." And I go, okay, Dennis, that's cool. So we go to Edmonton, and we played at a kind of a high-profile gig, and we went to the West Edmonton Mall, and we both bought sharkskin suits, those kind of silvery suits were big at the time. Dennis wore his all day in his hotel room, and I wore mine on stage. Anyway, that was just typical Dennis. So of course, we had our week there. And then when we're driving on our final road trip, we're driving to Nelson. Dennis says, "Oh, man, if we were there one more day, I'd have nailed her for sure." So, okay, Dennis, that's great. So as I used to at the time, I don't know if I ate hash or acid or who knew. I got pretty loaded on the trip. And it's probably like 7 or 8 hours from Edmonton to Nelson. So when I got to Nelson, I found I was rooming with Dennis. So the band had set me up, obviously, because I usually had my own room. And he drove me crazy all week, just being Dennis. One night he drank all this booze that was left over in some rum and some gin. And then he was sick the next day, but he tried to blame late night Chinese food. And we met on the Saturday night. The band had dinner without Dennis, and we all decided that we had to. He didn't make the cut. Now, we love the guy, didn't make the cut. But Chris, my drummer and longtime friend, he said, if we were a rich band, we would have just kept Dennis just for the laughs, because he was that cool a guy. Just that same night, he did this thing where he had a piece of, it was like ham or something hanging out of his mouth, and he was pretending to be a Minotaur lizard, and he'd be flipping his head back and forth with his crazy eyes and, eating a bit of it, gulping it back. And anyway, that was totally Dennis. And on the way back to Vancouver, he said, if I was there one more day, I'd have nailed her for sure. This cute French-Canadian waitress that he liked. Anyway, I had to fire Dennis, and that's the thing about a band is, Dennis was a super cool guy, but we had this thing going on. Now, to me, it doesn't matter at this point if we were famous or not famous. All those memories and all those friendships and the music of the band, it counts as a huge part of all our lives. And we really did like this guy. I fired him. It was tough. He was unhappy about it, but we remained friends. So many years later, my guitarist, Elio, called me. He said, "Oh, Dennis had terminal cancer, and he was in a hospice." And so we said, oh, well, let's go see him. So we went to see him, and it was pretty tough. Like he was really struggling, and we knew he didn't have long. But he was really glad to see us, and he actually told us, he said that those 3 weeks with the Finns was one of the best times that he ever had. And it was one of the great memories of life, which made us feel pretty good about it. Anyway, we saw him, and there was a pretty nurse that was taking care of him. And when we left, Dennis died a couple of days later. But when we left, Ellie and I looked at each other and said, man, one more day, and he'd have nailed it for sure. Anyway, rest in peace, Dennis Hopkins.